I was asked to make a review of The Next Step Season 3, and these are the notes that I had after watching the season. At first, I didn't really want to do a review of Season 3 because I really didn't remember what happened this season, but then I watched it again, and oh boy, I have never been more confused watching a season in my life. It was very unhinged and all over the place. Unorganized chaos, if you will. But I've decided to harness my expertise and turn what was unorganized chaos into chaotic brilliance, brought to you by yours truly. And today I will lay out all of my opinions about this season, no matter how unpopular. I fear this video will be extensive, so brace yourselves, for you will feel my wrath this season. Excuse me, I forget myself. Welcome to my Season 3 review of The Next Step. Season 3 recap. Right. Where do I even start? So, to give context, last season, Lucien, the head coach of the rival dance studio iiiii, offered The Next Step a lifeline in which they merge studios and compete at internationals together. Every season begins with all the dancers giving a glimpse as to what's been going on in their lives while they perform a dance number. But this season seems a little different. The dancers have a fire to them. It's like rent is due and the eviction notice is at the door. Thank you. Thank you. The Next Step is getting evicted, but like I said, Lucien is offering them a way out by merging studios. So they accept this offer because they literally can't do anything else. I mean, they're getting evicted. The concept of this challenge that Lucien proposed is that 2 names will be pulled out of a hat containing all the names of the competing elite dancers and the Next Step dancers, and whichever 2 names get pulled out, they have to do a dance battle to fight for their spot on the competing team. This was a doozy, and safe to say I did not get the results that I was looking for. By that I mean, Hunter literally got the boot in the first round.
I'm so sorry, Hunter.
I'm leaving with my head held high because I killed it, and I couldn't be more proud of myself.
Okay. What? Hunter was basically all I had left this season. So, to see him leave was actually mournful.
Hunter didn't make the internationals team.
What? And if that wasn't bad enough, Elite rigged the vote so that James and Riley would have to dance against each other. And James decided to throw the dance so that Riley could win indefinitely, but he would be kicked off the team. So, yeah. Anyways, the results of the dance battle left us with this as our age group. Riley, Chloe, West, Giselle, Eldon, Thalia, Amanda, Noah, and then some new additions from Elite, including Sierra, Max, and Chantal. Sorry. So this is the expected group that is taking the next step to internationals. Okay, it's not awful. But because Elite and the Next Step are rival dance studios, they obviously hate each other and are having a hard time coming together and singing Kumbaya. Sierra, a new addition from Elite, suggests that they do duets. This will help them get to know each other individually in the hopes of creating a symbiotic relationship that will benefit the both of them. This goes well for Sierra and her partner, Wes and his partner, but Giselle and Chantal...
Why don't you tell me something about yourself? Okay, I started dancing when I was 5.
Well, I started dancing when I was 2, did my ballet exam when I was 5, and I passed that.
Started acro when I was 7 and went to circus school.
I was like a clown.
No, like a contortionist.
Well, I started dancing when I was 2, did my ballet exam at 5, passed that. At the age of 8, I got my aerial. Then I toured with the ballet company when I was 14.
I started dancing when I was 5, started acro when I was 7, was a contortionist, went to circus school, came back, learned all the styles, and now I'm here.
So we had to vote her off the island and now she's gone. Any objections? Right, moving on. Chloe gets an opportunity to dance in the Nutcracker and takes it because... who wouldn't? But that also means that we've lost another dancer. Because everyone's dropping like flies, the Next Step takes on desperate measures to host yet another audition, but this time it's exclusive to B Troop. And you won't believe who has the gall to walk into the studio.
Next.
The auditions are in here, right?
I mean, it gets to a point where maybe shame is the friends that we made along the way, because how can you be so detached from the self that you would come back to the studio after everything that happened last season, and on top of that have an unshakable confidence? Daniel already auditioned in the beginning of the season with Elite, and he lost against Giselle, and guess what? He loses again because nobody likes him! Anyways, the result of the second audition means that the A Troop is now Riley, James, Wes, Eldon, Thalia, Noah, Giselle, Amanda, Max, Sierra, and Stephanie. Internationals this year had an exchange student program, and the next step decided to sign up for whatever reason. This plotline introduces a new character named Ella, and she's British. But because someone's coming in, someone needs to go. So they send Amanda. It's like I wrote this. So Amanda is now in Sweden, thank God, and Ella is now at the next step to teach them about British culture. Ella stays a while and she forms an unlikely friendship with Riley, a silly goose and an uptight girl. What could go wrong? Anyways, to finally wrap up the season, International happens and, well, more on that later. This season was pure unorganized chaos, and I need to speak my truth. There were a couple plot lines that did not sit right with me this season, and I really can't help but blame them all on Eldon. I don't know why yet, but I'll figure it out. Regarding my notes this season, no matter how random they may seem, they all hypothesize what I was able to take from every major plotline this season, starting with ballet boy swag. Specifically speaking, Eldon and Thalia's relationship. I didn't like it. I didn't. In fact, I hated it. But the thing is, I hate Eldon and I don't like Thalia, so this was doomed from the very beginning. Actually, no, it wasn't. I gave Eldon so much grace until he started talking about how he needed to get 30 pirouettes in order to date Thalia. Jojo, have you learned nothing? All of last season, Eldon ignored and avoided Michelle, his girlfriend, because he lost a dance battle against Hunter. You would think, right? Anyone with a working brain would think that after the regret and partial trauma that he put Michelle through, that he wouldn't reoffend. But no, I forget that I'm talking about Eldon, the most one-dimensional, nothing sandwich, imbecilic character in this entire show. Regarding him and Thalia, oy vey, every scene with them was actually hard to watch. Oh, you and Eldon aren't together yet? Why is that? Oh, because Eldon was challenged by James to get his 30 pirouettes first? Okay, whatever, then don't date. But then they would relentlessly continue to find ways to communicate by interpretive dance or a sweet spot? Like, literally no one knows what you guys are talking about.
There's just this really nice energy between us, and I can't really describe it, but it's definitely a good feeling.
Okay, I'll describe it. It's called gobbledygook. I'm not saying Eldon and Thalia are an awful couple because, in retrospect, if this was Emily and Hunter, I would have been semi-living for it. But it's Eldon and Thalia, so I hate it. Also, something I could not stand about Eldon this season is that he could not come up with an original thought to save his life. In episode 7, Riley gets her braces off, and James decides to surprise her with corn. Because when you have braces, one of the things you're not allowed to eat is corn. This is romantic because it's thoughtful of him to bring something to Riley that she's been holding out for years. It's also kind of an inside joke between the two of them. You know, it's cute. So Eldon, like an NPC, decides to get Thalia corn because, well, if James thinks it's romantic, well then, it must be universal. I'm convinced that the amount of twirling that Eldon does per day has started to affect his logical thinking because I'm baffled by everything that he does. Of course, Thalia doesn't see why Eldon would buy her corn at first, but then she sees Riley beaming about the corn that James got her earlier, and now Thalia's happy because she thinks that the corn is a romantic gesture. No. The corn is only a romantic gesture when there's context behind it. Without it, it's just corn. It's just corn. This relationship is nothing. It's built on absolutely nothing, which means it will amount to nothing, and that's why they break up in the later seasons. And I can't even pretend to be upset. The final episode that stuck out to me was episode 22. When at Amanda's welcome home party, everyone splits up into a couple to slow dance. Eldon and Thalia ask Giselle and Wes to pair up with each of them so that they can telepathically dance together.
Right now I'm slow dancing with West, but in a way I'm kind of slow dancing with Eldon.
That's pretty much.
It's weird. It's awkward. And the amount of secondhand embarrassment I felt through the screen was paralyzing.
Wes and Giselle are great friends. They're always willing to help, whether it's in dance or even with getting me and Thalia closer together.
You know what? You're absolutely right. Wes and Giselle are amazing friends because they always help the people around them. But what have you ever done for Wes? And what have you ever done for Giselle? Exactly. No one should be subjected to your weird, telepathic, hanky-panky, long-distance, twice-removed under the James jurisdiction relationship activities if they're not getting anything in return. Anyways, at the end of the season, Eldon ends up reaching his goal of 30 pirouettes, and he gets with Thalia, and I was ecstatic because that means that I can finally hear the end of them. In hindsight, this is supposed to be cute and romantic, and I cannot be more detached nor removed because it's Thalia and Eldon. They are just far too weird for my liking. Eldon is over dramatic and Thalia is just weird. I can't wrap my head around this couple. They just reek couple under the stairs vibes that would huddle and whisper to each other, "It's you and me against the world. They don't understand us." And they're right. I don't understand. I want my mom to come pick me up. I'll try to be nice, and I'll recount one nice scene that I liked of them. Okay, right. Let's think. With that aside, another huge plotline this season had to do with a brand new character from the land of crumpets and Love Island. And who's this character? Riley and Ella's relationship this season was a weird one for me. Ella came in as the exchange student from another country to learn about Canadian culture like maple syrup and Drake. Ella, being our villain of the season, came in with some type of motive to mess with the next step. Did she spread rumors about other people? Did she try to sabotage people's alliances within the studio? No, she would pull pranks. And all throughout the season, she would just pull pranks. Like, there's really nothing more to it. Maybe I just don't get it because I don't see the amusement in pulling random pranks that virtually do nothing except make people react like, "What? You pranked me! You're so silly." It's just juvenile practices, like still playing with dolls. Anyway, someone who's not compatible with this trickery is Riley. Ella notices this and plans to loosen Riley up and make her less uptight. So together they pull pranks like wrapping James's drum set in bubble wrap or sticking fries up their gums, you know? Regular Tuesday activity with the girls. Anyways, Riley starts to morph into a second Ella, and they go around the studio pulling pranks. With more time spent with Ella, Riley started to naturally stop spending as much time with James. So of course this impeded upon their relationship and led them to fight basically the entire season. James was like, "Riley, why do you waste so much time when there are other things that we could be doing? And don't think that I don't see you spending all that time with Ella, huh? Yeah, okay, I see you spending all that time with Ella, and it's weird." And then Riley is like, "James, you don't understand. This is what it looks like to be carefree. Get a good look. I'm an embodiment of being free and you don't understand." That's what all of their arguments were like this season. Every time James and Riley were supposed to hang out, Riley would ditch him to go spend time with Ella, and they would go off and do whatever they do. It felt like the equivalent of a husband, his wife, and his wife's wife. The third person in a relationship who has way too much influence, but doesn't technically belong there. Like, Ella did not care when she found out that she was causing a divide between James and Riley. It led me to think that, there were other motives. You know what I mean?
I haven't seen her in like a week, but it seems like forever just because we spent every day together when she was back at the next step.
Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna say anything, but episode 17 was Riley's Say No to Drugs episode. But if the drugs were pranks, Ella gets Riley to tag along on pulling a prank where they switch out the Internationals group dance for a square dance. Ella's completely chill about it, but Riley is so incredibly stressed out and worried about all the dancers wasting their time when they could be, for example, training for Internationals. Out of guilt and regret, she tells James and he loses it on her, like weirdly really upset about it.
Yeah, that's funny, except for, you know, I could be in band practice, or we could be working on our duets, or our semifinals routine, or our finals routine. We all have so much else to be worrying about. And she does this?
Like, square dancing? I think you'll be okay. And anyways, they tour. Like, it was actually fun. I was living for it.
Ladies chain, go halfway around. Your little foot up and your big foot down. Join your hands, you circle to the left, you circle to the left. You never get left, you circle to the left. Now roll that lady with a half sachet.
The weird part about this episode is that Riley is visibly worried about the harmless pranks that they pulled because of some of the aid troopers that are having a hard time figuring out the dance. It's like she didn't even want to do it, but did it anyways. That's what didn't make sense about the Riley's, like, rebellious arc. I mean, that is if you count square dancing as rebellious. Most of the time when a character reaches this point in their development, they go all in to a point where they are blinded to the consequences of their actions. But Riley was weirdly not fully committed to the bit, which I suppose is quite realistic to her character because she can be quite neurotic, but I just don't understand the point of making Riley being the rebellious one because she couldn't even commit. As far as Ella goes, she chose a good target. Riley's naive. The whole situation is just very peculiar. You know what else is peculiar? Divorce, babe. Divorce.
What's my next album going to be based on? Divorce, babe. Divorce.
Welcome to Michelle's portion of the video. Michelle is always going through something, whether we know it about it or not. Her victim complex ensures that there's always a new crisis on the table. But this season, she actually had real reasons to be upset. So as a viewer, I extended as much compassion as I could until I simply could not anymore. Michelle, no one cares that your parents are getting a divorce. That was the note that I had written after the season ended. And okay, I'll admit, that's a generalization, so I'll specify. Michelle, I don't care that your parents are getting a divorce. Now put the pitchforks down. Let me preface that I understand being a child of divorce is rough. It's painful. Trust me, I get it. However, I don't care. There's a threshold for how much a single character should be able to harp on one topic before it crosses into absurdity, and Michelle leaped over that line like it was a full-on dance routine. And I don't even think I'm being hyperbolic. That was my issue with this entire storyline. This show has never been serious, but suddenly they want to pull a Lost and Found and hit us with meaningful and deep plot lines. Sorry, but the whiplash. It was impossible to take Michelle's situation seriously when the same show has built its brand on drama, dance battles, and unserious antics. And what's even worse is that Michelle doesn't even bring it up in the next season. It's all about becoming the best dancer on the team. Like, girl, I thought your life was falling apart. Right, because let me tell you, Michelle brought up her parents so much this season that just watch it for yourself.
It's so annoying. My parents are driving me insane. Since the win at Nationals, my parents have actually been going through a divorce. I can't deal with them anymore. Well, I'm just going through a really hard time right now, and I want to be there for the team, but I honestly don't think I can be. What do you mean you can't be there? Well, my mom just called me, and she told me that she needs me in Madison to help her pick out a house. My mom called, and she told me that she needs me in Madison.
It's, alright. I mean, I'm stuck in my grandmother's basement, and my mom still hasn't found a place.
I don't even know where I'm gonna live. I don't know if I'm moving back to Madison or if I'm staying here with my dad. I just have a lot on my plate, and there's just so much going on in my life. My dad didn't know he was driving me, and then he thought that my mom was driving me, and it was just a huge mess, and I'm really sorry. I'm so upset with what happened with Sierra. I didn't think this divorce could get any worse, but it has. And now it's affecting the whole team. It's just, I feel like my parents never got to spend any time with each other because, well, my mom was always driving me to competitions and recitals, and she never got time to spend with my dad because of me. I just feel like it's all my fault. Yeah, my parents are getting a divorce, and my mom's moving back to Madison, and my dad's staying here. So I don't know who I'm staying with yet. But there is this part of me that still doesn't want to move back to Madison with my mom. They just keep fighting and fighting and fighting, and I don't know what I ever did. I feel like they're fighting about me. I don't know how to fix this. I've never been through anything like this, and I'm sick and tired of dealing with it. From my mom moving and me staying with my dad, it's just all over the place, and I honestly couldn't find it.
Well, you clearly know that my parents got divorced.
Yeah, that's really dry. Continue.
On top of all of the parental mumbo-jumbo, Michelle was going through it. I don't know what kind of karma she cashed in between season 2 and season 3, but the universe had a personal vendetta against her. Some might call that karmic justice, and I wouldn't disagree. That being said, let me circle back to my original note. Michelle, no one cares that your parents are getting a divorce. And I mean that literally, because within the show, nobody cared either. Every time Michelle tried to open up about her struggles, which was every other scene, the response was always, yeah, but what does this mean for the team?
I know that the team needs her more than ever, so hopefully she'll choose the next step.
I know she has family stuff to deal with, but I thought dance was her passion.
You know I'm an organized person, Miss Kate, and it's just my parents have been all over the place.
Michelle, I'm making you an alternate for internationals. I'm sorry, it was a tough decision, but I need to do what's best for the team.
Now, as much as I don't like Michelle, even I had to admit, that was kind of sad. She was out here pouring her heart out, and everyone was like, okay, but can you still dance? At least by the end of the season, she and Sierra bonded over having divorced parents. But even that felt so random. Like, Sierra, she's literally from Elite. Not one person from the native studio wanted to help out Michelle? Well, it seems like this feeling is unanimous then. I think if they wanted to handle this situation with a little more sensitivity, maybe don't kick the child to divorce while she's down, but I guess that makes me a walking contradiction. Like I said, I didn't have a problem with Michelle's storyline. I thought it gave her some depth, but it made the vibes of the season so weird. Like, not one thing went Michelle's way this season. It was kind of sad. At the end of the day, I don't want to see my least favorite character suffer because then I can't make fun of them. To be fair, I'll name one moment this season where I felt bad for Michelle and then one moment where I did not. A moment this season that tore me to shreds for Michelle is when Hunter hung up on her.
Sounds really fun, Hunter.
Hey, Michelle, I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Wait!
I can't imagine the feeling of having one of the best Next Step characters hang up on you like that. It's gotta be rough. She's stronger than I thought. One moment where I didn't feel bad for her is when, I'm sorry, I'm gonna laugh. The girls are practicing for their internationals group dance, and Michelle is playing the role of the Empress, and she starts crying. That's not funny. I actually feel bad. But then she turns around so that they won't see her. Who's gonna tell her? Do I? Do I have to be the one to tell Michelle that there's a whole mirror in front of her? They can see you, Michelle! Jokes aside, if the storyline moved you, then I'm glad you had representation, but I was very unmoved. In fact, I've never been more still in my life. I've become an inertia enthusiast. Moving on to a new but familiar character coming straight from J-Troop. From wishing people well to doing intense flips in Studio A, we have actually one of my favorite characters of all time, Noah. This was the season that unlocked his character and allowed us to finally follow his story, finding his way on 8-Troop. So grab your pets, and let's sail on a ride that I like to call Noah's Ark. Something I really like about this show is how natural it feels when the new characters come in. What I mean by this is, Noah may be new to 8-Troop and only now becoming a structural character, but we've always known who Noah is. I mean, but now he's just older, and with that experience, he can now take part in being an 8-Troop dancer, and I think there's something really wholesome about that. Anyways, this goes all the way back to episode 2, when Miss Kate offers Noah a position on the team if he succeeds at the elite dance duel thing. He obviously wins and is now a part of 8-Troop. Unfortunately, he wins against a girl named Abby, which is actually the girl he has a massive crush on. I meant unfortunately for him. I don't care. Noah spends pretty much the entirety of the season trying to get Abby to notice him, or better yet, admit that she feels the way that he does. He does this by embarrassing himself countless of times, but it's coming from a place of endearment. And he's like 13, so obviously. Aside from the whole Abby thing, Noah has pretty solid plot lines this season. Very coherent, very engaging, very mindful. Episode 13 is where I feel Noah started to integrate nicely into the team, because this is the episode where they find out Noah has superpowers. Well, not actual superpowers, obviously, but he's just insanely agile and has very strong senses. When talking to James, Wes noticed in the corner of his eye Noah catching a glass of milk falling off the table. He does it with an aloofness that makes it seem like it's not that big of a deal when it actually is. They spend the entire episode doing, I guess, advanced motor skill challenges like playing dodgeball or catching things while blindfolded. The only reason why I mention this is because it ties into what occurs at Nationals, but that's not the focus right now. Since Noah made a spot on the team so suddenly, it was harder to integrate himself into the studio as an established dancer. It also doesn't help that most of the 8-Troop dancers have known Noah since he was a child, so they tend to minimize his impact on the team because they still see him as a kid. And granted, he's only like, I don't know, I have a bad perception of age. I'm gonna say 13, maybe 14 in this season. Like, that's still young, but he's not fetus Noah singing with his J-Troop friends anymore. He's older now, and he wants people to take him more seriously. Noah is, like, objectively one of the best dancers in the entire studio, but they made him seem like he wasn't that good. I suppose this was just for character development, but they really shouldn't have been the one actor, who also happens to be the strongest dancer in the studio, have the plotline of being minimized for his skills. I don't know. Still love Noah. Thought he was great. They also totally left Noah out of the square dance, which I know you would have threw down. Noah from this season on becomes an integral part of the team and of the main cast. They can never make me hate Noah, even though they were never trying to, but I'll put it out there anyways. I'm out here in Miami. This season's internationals is long. Usually the length of the competition is 3 to 5 episodes, but this time around it was like 10 episodes, which makes sense because it's the biggest competition of their lives, but damn. It was never ending. The next step makes it to internationals, which this year is taking place in Miami.
Guys, I really want to do a tour of Miami. I found one that goes right to Drake's house. I'm dying.
This was actually one of my favorite episodes of the season. Episode 23. Everyone is looking to get situated and ultimately take a tour of Miami because they have a day off before the competition starts. Riley ditches James to get brunch with Ella. Suspicious. James and Eldon go and do whatever they do, and Wes, Giselle, Stephanie, and Amanda all group up together to tour Miami. Focusing on Riley and Ella, they go out for brunch, and Ella conveniently forgets her wallet. This is actually what we call lens persado, someone who conveniently shows up with no money, so that's you, girly. Ella leaves to go get her wallet, and surprise, surprise, she doesn't come back. Diabolical. So Riley is left to pay the bill on her own, but she didn't bring her wallet. to pay off the $80 amount of food that they ate, which if you saw how much they ate, in today's age, that would be, according to my calculations, $500,000, I think. Anyways, Riley is faced with two options. Either she works as a waitress at the restaurant to work off the bill, or she gets deported. So she starts working as a waitress. She needs to make $80 in tips, and she needs to make it fast so that she can get back to internationals. She calls James to come help her, but James is busy with Eldon. Basically, Eldon is... oh my god, I actually don't care. Eventually, James and Eldon show up to rescue Riley. She asks for $80 straight up so that she can pay the restaurant manager and get out, but they tease her by ordering food and acting as regular customers. Riley ends up literally slapping them in the face until they give the $80. I thought this was funny. I don't condone violence, but maybe I do. On the other hand, Giselle, Stephanie, and Amanda are taken on a tour guided by no one other than West. I thought this was endearing and just more proof of West being one of the best characters on the show. He actually shows up for his friends whether they asked him to or not. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Anyways, once the tour is over, they start dancing, of course. A 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the episode ends on this still, and if the actor who plays West wants me to sue for this egregious shot, let me know. I'll call my people. So with the first day being out of the way, it's finally time for internationals, the biggest competition of their lives. This is literally every country competing for themselves. The first round is Mr. and Mrs. Internationals, where every competing team has their soloist perform, and if they win, they get a 5-point advantage that can be used at any point in the competition when need be. Riley is our female soloist, and Eldon is our male soloist, to no one's surprise. Eldon is the first to perform, but he's nervous because he doesn't have his designated lucky coin. But as substitution, Thalia asks him to win for her, a testament to their unwavering love. So what does he do? He goes out and he fucking loses. Boyfriend of the year. Anyway, the next step has now lost their first opportunity at a 5-point advantage, but they still have one more person who can get the extra 5 points for the team, and that's Riley. Riley was chosen as this year's female soloist because she's one of the strongest dancers. While Michelle was the winner of the Nationals female solo bracket, she's been caught up with her parents getting a divorce, resulting in her becoming this year's alternate, alongside Amanda. It's like I wrote this. Riley had basically been working on this solo all season and was ready to perform it at internationals for the entire world to see, quite literally. But with the twist of the season, Ella goes on the stage to do her solo, and what do you know?
And then I realize she's doing my choreography to my song.
This is your solo.
I know.
During her short stay at the Next Step studio, Ella managed to steal Riley's solo and perform it as her own. I was gagged when I watched this as a child. Like, truly befuddled. I mean, what happened to girl power and feminism? Hello? And to do it all in that bun? Tragic. The Next Step obviously scrambles to find some sort of replacement for Riley's solo so that she doesn't have to go out there and get called out for stealing another person's dance, even though it's the opposite. So, light bulb. I'm a genius. There's only one dance that I love in this series so much, and it's Riley's solo after James cheated on her. I love this dance so much, and it would be a good response to Ella's stunt. I mean, the lyrics are literally, "Don't take enemies for friends." So I'm thinking, I'm cooking right now. This is the dance that they're going to make Riley do, especially since they've never been able to use it in any formal competition with Amanda's antics last year. It would make perfect sense, which is exactly why they make Giselle do a solo.
So this is how it ends.
A random one at that, but she does it to the same song? What in the missed opportunity just unfolded in front of my very eyes? I think I may have been born in the wrong generation. I should have been born in 1990 and worked hard in college and become a show writer just so I could rewrite this entire scene, because what the hell? I mean, come on. It was right there. Anyways, Giselle does her solo, and I don't know who hates her behind the scenes, because why did they make her look like one of those penguins from Happy Feet? Who's responsible for this? Anyways, they lose. Right. Now, had you gone with my idea, things would have looked very different. So the Next Step is not doing well at all. They missed both opportunities at a 5-point advantage. I mean, Riley's dance was stolen, so I don't really know what Eldon's excuse was, but regardless, this means that they have to work even harder if they want a chance at winning the trophy. They start off the third day by observing the other dance teams, trying to get a feel of the competition. The show states that this is a Polish team, but is that not literally 30 Daniels? Like, this is a cloning episode. Anyways, the premise of this bracket in the competition is that groups of 4 will be made from one dancer representing their team/country. For example, one dancer from Canada, one from China, one from France, and one from Kenya. They would all have to work together regardless of their language barriers and create a dance good enough to move on into the competition. However, only 4 teams make it out of this bracket, and the rest of the teams will be eliminated. The team has Thalia represent them because she's a polyglot, and so she can converse with pretty much any team. So she ends up forming a team with Poland, France, and Vietnam, and they all conveniently speak French, which completely defeats the purpose of the challenge, but I'm glad they found a loophole, I guess. Thalia, however, continues to speak in Polish to the Polish guy, leaving the other two dancers confused. Thalia, why are you doing that? Everyone here speaks French. Thalia's group performs and they did good, I guess. But they actually end up winning that category, which means that the next step is like one last step away from potentially winning the entirety of internationals. A new day means a new twist that the internationals put on the dance of the competing teams. In this episode, every team is forced to do their 5-person dance blindfolded. That sounds like a lawsuit waiting to happen. So if you remember, the 5-person dance was composed of Riley, Amanda, Stephanie, Giselle, and Michelle. Like, you remember that episode where I never laughed at Michelle when she was crying and she turned around to face the mirror? That's the dance that they have to do blindfolded, which everyone originally struggles with, so Wes suggests that they have Noah substitute in for any one of them because of that episode where we find out that Noah has superpowers and is like really good at that agile stuff. So he's a perfect candidate, of course. Michelle opts out of the dance because she is the alternate. Thank you for your bravery. Anyways, after watching multiple other teams compete, some dancers managing to almost fall off the stage completely, thank you, security, for your attentive work, always. The next step goes on, and the concept of their dance is that Noah is a prince, and all the princesses are fighting for his heart. So basically a harem. I've read far too many books with this premise. I know how this ends. It ends with the redhead every time. And what do you know, huh? The next step wins because their dance was so super awesome and no one fell off the stage, which means they can move up in the competition. Episode 28, trigger warning. This episode contains a lot of Eldon. Like, a lot. As we've established, in internationals, there's always going to be some sort of twist on the dance or on the format of the dance, whatever. On the 6th day of internationals, the twist was that all of the teams would be dancing to a song that they've never heard before. So whatever dance they had planned for the quartet round, they are now doing it to a mystery song. One dancer from each remaining team would have to spin for as long as possible, trying to out-twirl, if you will, the other dancers. A spin-off, really. No, thank you. Thank you. So of course they choose Eldon to do it because it's not like he spent this entire season obsessing over this whole 30 spins thing. Whoever spins the longest gets to perform last, therefore being able to hear the mystery song the longest and being able to work with it and tweak it to fit whatever dance they had prior to hearing the music. This ends up working out great for the next step because the song is kind of meant for a more hip-hop style dance anyways rather than like a contemporary dance. So not only does the next step have an advantage because Eldon won the twirling thing, but also the music fits perfectly for their style of dance. Yes, Eldon does win, and yes, that means him and Thalia are together. Yippee! Anyways, like clockwork, the next step performs and they're dressed like Dauntless, so buck it up! The next step wins, no one's shocked. Moving on, episode 29. I'm going to be very brief with this episode because Wes is dealing with a stomach ache of some sort of street food, and the amount of gagging he did in this episode triggered my emetophobia enough for me to cut out a good majority of this episode. So to keep it short, Michelle replaces him in the dance as an alternate, but Wes miraculously heals and ends up dancing anyway. So you may be wondering, what was the point of this episode? And to that I would say, I have no clue. But with that done and over with, that means we have finally reached the final episode of this season. This episode starts with a guest appearance of the one and the only Lucien. He is now one of the judges on the panel and will be in charge of judging the next step amongst all the other teams. Obviously, Miss Kate sees a problem with this considering that Lucien has tried to take down the next step a plethora of times. I mean, he literally did at the very beginning of the season. So Miss Kate spends this entire episode trying to prove to the judges that Lucien is not who he says he is, and he's a supervillain trying to take them down. Now that's just ridiculous. Have you ever heard of having fun? Come on. Apparently this is the episode of characters we didn't want to come back who came back. Yes, that's right. I'm talking about the myth, the legend. We all know and well, we all just know him. It's Daniel. Daniel makes one last sorry attempt at mending his relationship with the next step by showing them proof of Lucien verbatim saying he's trying to destroy the next step.
What are we gonna do? We're gonna destroy the next step. What are we gonna do?
Destroy the next step.
Destroy it.
Daniel gives the next step the video of Lucien incriminating himself and says that this was always a part of his master plan. Turn on Lucien and turn on Lucien! Wait. Turn on Lucien. Turn on him. Turn on and save the next step. 2 steps ahead. I'm always 2 steps ahead. Oh, please! Save me this absolute garbage of a Daniel redemption arc. Daniel has continuously missed the mark every season, which means that this calls for yet another Daniel segment. Oh my god, why am I subjecting myself to this? Damn, Daniel, back at it again with the contradictions. I can't believe I have to do this again, but alas, I can't let this slide. Let's rewind this entire season all the way back to the second episode of season 3. Daniel is sitting on a park bench. He is moping. He is lost. It turns out that the offer that Daniel got to audition for Juilliard was bombed. The audition, to be clear, not Juilliard. That would be crazy. Daniel is thinking that he's probably not going to get into Juilliard with his failed audition, but Hope is near. Actually, Hope takes a seat right next to Daniel. Hope is Lucien. Lucien offers Daniel a spot on Elite to try and get on the internationals team. Lucien offers this because he's messy, and Daniel accepts it because he's desperate. So Daniel is now a part of Elite, which means that Lucien is his coach, and Daniel listens to his coach. At Culture Shock, Lucien says, and I quote, "What are we going to do?" Snaps finger. Tess says, "Destroy the next step," and Daniel says so as well. He does this all while secretly recording. Well, of course we know this now because he uses it as evidence against Lucien. But let's take a listen into why Daniel started recording in the first place.
I'm recording Lucien just because he's so crazy, and these speeches are just a good laugh later on.
Interesting. So Daniel claims in this clip that he's just recording Lucien because he thinks it's funny and he wants to laugh at it later. Okay, harmless. So I'm wondering, where does this narrative of wanting to save the next step even come from? But wait, I'm generous. Let's say, hypothetically, somewhere along his unstable, spiraling journey to internationals, Daniel had a change of heart. Maybe he realized his error of his ways. Maybe he wanted a redemption, right? Wrong, because nothing about his actions support this. That clip was in episode 6. The next time we see Daniel is in episode 14, where A-Troop is holding auditions to replace Emily and Chloe and the other Elite dancers that left. Daniel shows up to the studio with the same attitude he always has, and for some reason he quotes Michelle from season 1.
I have Jacob next.
The auditions are in here, right?
He claims that the next step needs him and they can't win without me, the regular Daniel shtick. The type of shtick that doesn't read, "I want the best for my friends, but maybe my judgment is clouded." Daniel leaves the studio, to which he says,
I'm really heartbroken, but not that surprised. I have been mean and selfish in the past, but I kind of hoped that some of my old friends would still have my back.
Well, I know I've been mean, and I've literally burnt every single bridge, and I made all my friends hate and distrust me, but I thought that friends had each other's back, even if I don't and I never will. After this, Daniel disappears until he randomly shows up at internationals to save the next step. At this point, I need someone to explain to me where the secret episode is, the one where Daniel walks back into the studio, apologizes to everyone he's wronged, and then they all braid each other's hair like a beautiful redemption arc, because I'm really not understanding, and I can't keep doing this do-si-do. Unless it's like the do-si-do that they did in episode 17. Whatever, I'm over it. Back to internationals. With this newfound piece of information, Miss Kate hands it into the competition runner, and she hands it to the other guy, who hands it to the other guy, and Lucien ends up getting dragged away by security.
This is ridiculous. Honestly, there's been a mistake. There's been a mistake, guys. Kate, you...
I could not be more happy.
I can't agree. This made me viscerally upset. Don't handle him like that. This is elderly abuse. But with Lucien out of the way, the next step performs their final dance at internationals. I mean, this is the final dance of the final competition. Internationals is as far as it goes. So there's a very small chance that they will all dance together ever again. So we should go out with a bang, right guys? Right guys? No, let's do the exact same dances we did last year. Real creative. And just when you think it's over, it's not. It's not over. The next step ties with the Scandinavians somehow, which means that the next step has to go into a final tiebreaker round, specifically for duets. Luckily, at the beginning of the season, James and Riley were already assigned the internationals duet because who else would do it? Let's be for real. So James and Riley do their duet. Oh God, here come the tears. They perform this beautiful masterpiece of a duet where the concept is that there is this fervid magnetic energy that pulls them towards each other. No matter how hard they pull away from it, they can't deny that it's there.
So overjoyed and extremely excited to be with him, but at the same time it feels kind of heartbreaking. I
have no words. Tears I have in my eyes, but words, no. James and Riley's duet obviously wins the trophy because if it had not, this video would have never existed because I would have thrown my laptop out the window. The next step has actually somehow managed to conquer internationals and take the trophy. Me not remembering this season at all, I do not have that much faith in them, but they pulled through. Let's fucking go, I guess. This season ends with Eldon being an actual chatbot and being like, if international over, what now? And Riley's like, I don't fucking know, let's go dance. They celebrate, and that's how season 3 ends. That concludes season 3 of The Next Step. But, excuse me. I need to get one last thing off my chest because this was literally the most jarring thing about this season. Yes, I'm talking about West. This season truly made me question the dynamics on the show and the unfair treatment of certain characters on The Next Step. On my last video, I got a comment that really highlighted something I've always noticed about the show, but I've never realized how obvious it was until I rewatched it at an older age. The comment reads, hold on. Wes was the only unproblematic guy in the show because the writers didn't let him date anyone. He just watches on the side while his bros fuck up in their relationships. Hashtag let Wes date. This comment really stuck with me and is actually one of the only reasons why I decided to do a video on season 3 because I fear we need to talk about West. Thank you for commenting on this and opening up this can of worms because boy do I have notes about this. So welcome to the West segment of this video. In my last video, I described West as unproblematic, comedic relief, and a really good friend to others. It was the most concise and honestly wholesome character analysis I'd given to any of the characters because, well, look what I'm working with. Wes has always been one of my favorite characters, but this season especially, I couldn't help but wonder, why do they treat him like that? The first person that comes to mind when I think about the mistreatment of West is a character I always have smoke for, and that's Eldon. Eldon just has a very quick-tempered personality where if you do or say something a little off, he'll explode. So I guess you could excuse Eldon's behavior for being reckless sometimes, but I'm not gonna make excuses because I cannot stand Eldon, and I will take any opportunity I can to criticize him. My favorite episode this season by far was episode 9. Eldon is practicing some ballet moves when Wes walks into the studio and gives him some pointers. Eldon questions Wes and asks what he knows about ballet to be giving out unwarranted advice. That's fair. Wes says he knows plenty about ballet, and so Eldon challenges Wes to audition for a spot in the Nutcracker. He does this to call Wes bluff because he doesn't think that he's actually gonna go through with it. Wes spends the entire day with Chloe learning ballet and improving on whatever skills he had prior. It's super wholesome, and Chloe and Wes are such a good pair because Chloe's nice enough to not step all over Wes. Unlike Chloe tells Eldon that Wes is genuinely improving, and Eldon responds, yeah, well, we'll see about that. Clap if you think she should suffer. Wes, like anyone, is obviously feeling discouraged after his best friend came into the room and minimized his efforts of getting better at ballet, which, by the way, are very impressive for the minimal training that he did. Wes is like, okay, well, now I want to give up. There's no point, yada yada. But Chloe is quick to re-encourage Wes and he agrees to go through with the audition. The audition goes way better than expected, with Wes making it to the very last stretch. When the studio finds out how far he made into the competition, some of them are rightfully happy for their friend, and of course, Eldon is Eldon.
That's the first round.
Really? Wow. Who is running this audition? I'm gonna have to go out and get me a flying pig.
Eldon.
Oh, he's a hip hop dancer.
Do you guys?
You're hilarious. Tell me more, Eldon. Tell me more about why hip-hop dancers can't branch out and expand their stylistic palette. You know, the same way you're predominantly a ballet dancer, but we let you get away with whatever this is. No, tell me why. A trained hip-hop dancer can never learn how to dance like a ballerina when Chloe easily adapted hip-hop herself multiple times and everyone praised her for her efforts. It's perfectly normal to be able to pick up a different style of dance if you're already a dancer. It's kind of like how if you know how to play the guitar, it's easier to pick up the piano because you already know basic music theory concepts. Of course, hip hop and ballet are on two opposite ends of the spectrum, but for example, I can imagine Wes has height when jumping because he knows how to flip. And his arms are super flexible because he does whatever this is. Those are both skills I'm sure come in handy when learning ballet. This episode was my favorite because of how wholesome it was. If I remember correctly, there's an episode in season 1 where Wes and Chloe teach baby ballet together, and this episode really reminded me of that. I don't know too much about dance, but it's actually really cool to watch dancers who are concentrated in one genre branch out to the opposite end of the spectrum and really test their skills. It was really impressive that Wes made it to the final round and received such good feedback from the ballet company judges. And all Eldon had to do was support that. But instead, he ruined the episode by being a weirdo and a horrible friend. He never apologized for belittling Wes. He never acknowledged it because it's Eldon. Eldon is seriously somehow the worst character on the show, but also the worst boyfriend, the worst best friend. I mean, pick a struggle. Moving on from Eldon, I'm bringing in a character very near and dear to my heart, and that's Emily. Oof, I feel like I can breathe again. Last season, after Emily and Hunter broke up, Emily and Wes started to get a lot closer. At Nationals, they even shared a kiss, leaving viewers on their toes.
I'm just so excited that I run up to Emily and I kiss her. You know, I just really want to share this moment with her.
Maybe some writers should have pushed this plotline a little further because some viewers were still grieving Emily and Hunter, but I digress. West and Emily and West. I love these two characters, and honestly, it makes sense. Except we go into the next season, this one, and they completely scrapped it for no reason. They share such a sweet moment together in the first episode of season 3, and then it's just over. Wes says that because of the drama between her and the troupe, he knows that they have no hope as a couple, and whatever that means.
Sure. I realize now that with all the drama that's happening with her and with the troupe, I know that there's really no hope for this relationship.
I mean, I just don't get it. Why introduce a new relationship, including two very important characters to the franchise, and then saying that they can't date because there's no hope? My intelligence has been insulted. I see right through this. Emily and A-Troop have been fine for ages. She's not with Hunter anymore, and her and Wes have already kissed at this point. It actually makes zero sense that this relationship didn't work out. Well, actually, there is a reason, but it requires me to get something. So, I'm sorry, but I have to do it. I have to pull it out. I'm pulling out the race card. I'm sorry. A couple months ago, I stumbled upon this video called The Undateable BIPOC Co-Star by Tron. This video specifically came back to me when I was gathering my thoughts about how the show treated Wes this season, and even seasons prior. To briefly summarize this video, Tron talks about how, and I quote, the undateable BIPOC character trope is when a non-white supporting character is not allowed to date a white main character in the cast for no other reason than the fact that they are not white themselves. He talks about Andre from Victorious, which that entire conversation would send me into psychosis, so I'm not even going to touch that, or other characters in popular shows like Glee with Mercedes. I think this entire character archetype unfortunately fits West's experience on the show, specifically talking about his relationship with Emily. Although maybe random and unexpected to a lot, I don't think anyone opposed them being together after the relationship was hard launched at the end of season 2. So to abruptly end their relationship in the very first episode without a good explanation or even a couple episodes where you can see them as a couple was majorly disappointing. Now, I guess you could argue that if Emily was not a part of the season, what good would it be to have them date if Emily's not even present? And to that, I would propose two options. One, either Emily and Wes simply date off screen with an Emily cameo here and there, or two, Wes could have formed a romantic relationship with someone else. Like a ballet dancing, bun wearing someone else. Like, Chloe, it was right there. Chloe and Wes spent a lot of time together this season because of Chloe's big decision to leave the studio to join the Nutcracker on tour. But with all that time spent together, it would have been a perfect opportunity for them to have formed something really sweet. And then Wes could have gone supporting her on tour instead of being Eldon's personal interpretive dancer for him and Thalia's relationship. Now, there's also an argument where Wes doesn't have to date anyone. Not every single character has to be in a relationship. And I partially agree with this. There's nothing I hate more than when I'm watching a show or a movie and all the side characters end up getting together for the purpose of just being in a couple. However, Eldon has now had 3 relationships in the show, all of which he has overcomplicated and even mistreated some of his partners.
Well, I was thinking about it and I decided it isn't really what you do, it's who you do it with.
When Emily said that, it made me realize I'd rather be with Michelle. I'm not sure how I feel about Emily anymore.
You
just tell me what's going on?
Yeah, I guess we're done. Breaking up with Michelle is probably the hardest thing I've had to do.
Really? So that's it?
I'm sorry, but if Mr. I need 30 pirouettes to prove my love to Thalia because James said so can have a relationship in this season, everyone can, let alone West. Also, West has somehow managed to never do anything wrong in this show. It's very obvious that all the girls trust him, which is such a green flag. He's always there for his friends, another green flag. He supports his friends' wins. Green flag. Need I go on? Wes was the perfect character to be in a relationship, and they annihilated all of his chances of doing so, and just reduced him to a stepping stone to other people's storylines. And when it was finally his turn to get a piece of the pie, his relationship was collateral damage to Emily's circumstances. For what it's worth, I think that the show does a way better job at giving the cast's main black characters relationships with their white co-stars in the later seasons, like Henry and Amy, or LaTroy and Amy, which I cannot talk about or else I will start crying. That being said, it would have been nice had they got it right the first time, because I think that Wes's entire character was incessantly robbed throughout the entire show. Ultimately, if I could truly have it my way, Emily and Hunter would still be together, but we're living in a universe where Emily and Hunter were scrapped and West Emily took over, so maybe finish that storyline? I don't know. Is that crazy for me to ask for a show to finish a storyline that they started? I don't know. Regardless, I'm glad we were able to get a glimpse into what things could have been like if Wes and Emily got together with that 10-second clip we got of them in the beginning of the season. Crumbs, people. Crumbs. Eldon still takes the cake for being the worst character in the show. I don't think anything could get worse than him in season 2, but he still gave it his all, so don't underestimate him. Eldon's storyline this season focused entirely on getting Thalia to be his girlfriend. He was challenged by James to get 30 pirouettes before he can date Thalia, because that proves that he can do 30 pirouettes. After cheating on Emily with Michelle and sacrificing Michelle in a dance battle, I thought that maybe Eldon would be more careful and logical about his next victim. But no, he did literally the exact same thing he did to Michelle to Thalia. He ignored Thalia for an entire episode because he didn't want to tell her about the challenge James put him up to.
Do you want to go to a concert with me?
He literally did this exact same thing to Michelle last season. It's a vicious cycle.
I promised James that I wouldn't date anyone until I got 30 pirouettes, because that'll show that I'm mature enough.
Right, yes, because ignoring the girl you like who clearly likes you back all because James asked you to do 30 pirouettes that would prove virtually nothing is the mature thing to do. And also, when you can just tell her what's happening, you refuse to and ask James to tell her because that's the mature thing to do. And when Ella asks to kiss you for 24 pirouettes in front of Thalia, you go through with it because that's the mature thing to do. When the girl you like is clearly interested in you and you can easily make your own decisions about your own relationship, you choose to take advice from the guy that literally cheated on his girlfriend because that's the mature thing to do. Eldon is either a psychopath or a robot. There's no in between. Besides him and Thalia, Eldon also managed to squeeze in being the worst friend in the world. And he's the kind of person not where he'll completely turn on you, like for example Ella. He's the type of friend who's secretly preying on your downfall all of the time. Obviously, I covered his little tiff with Wes, but he also did this to Noah. In episode 21, Eldon and Noah take turns showing each other their dance skills in a competitive way. Eldon's like, I'm undefeated. Everyone has lost a dance battle against me. I guess we're just gonna ignore this. And Noah clears him real bad by doing the very 30 pirouettes Eldon has been working towards all season.
28, 29, 30. See that control? 30. You know, there's a lot more to dance than just pirouettes, bud.
That's not what Thalia said.
Anyways, by the end of the episode, Noah ends up earning a lot of respect from Eldon, which I suppose is positive, but why did there have to be contention in the first place? It's like he's constantly in competition with his own friends, which honestly makes a lot of sense. With Eldon being the best male dancer on the team, it makes sense that he would always feel the need to do better than others, and that's me trying to rationalize his behavior, this being his behavior. The drama, it's actually insane. Like, actually insane? Like, it's actually insane. No, like, it's actually insane. If I could have scrapped anyone from this season, it would be him. No questions asked. Yeah, but then all the important plot lines like him and Thalia would also be scrapped. Perfect. Take that too. I think it says a lot about a character if their one redeeming quality is that they dance really well on a show that is centered around competitive dancers. Like, you bring nothing else to the table? Like, here, I'll even bring one. Nothing? Well, shit. Anyways, I'll say it again. Eldon never ends up growing on me in the next season, so my points will always remain true for me. I've never really had much to say about Thalia because she was never that significant in season 2. Sure, she took a few shots at Emily when she was fed up in the last seasons, but at that point, Thalia wasn't even an established character, so why judge her on her past? I'm really not a biased person. Fresh season, clean slate, and honestly, I barely remember anything from the season, so in my eyes, this felt like a proper introduction to Thalia. And yeah, I was underwhelmed. I wanted to cut her some slack since she's a newer character, but the further I got into the season, the more I realized she's in too deep. She likes Eldon because of the way that he is, and that's a choice. I'm a feminist. I believe in women's rights and wrongs. However, this is a war crime. Thalia is a full-on enabler. She makes Eldon think that the way that he acts is not only normal, but preferred. But for what it's worth, Thalia herself isn't that annoying. It's just a relationship that makes me want to perhaps get, how do you say, hit by a truck. Watching them together felt like being smushed between the couple under the stairs. Like, girl, blink twice if you need help. All right, I'll give her this. She's patient. But her biggest con, that would be her boyfriend. And unfortunately for her, that's not a minor inconvenience. That's her personality at this point. Oh Lord. The next character is Michelle. Michelle obviously had her own storyline going on this season with her parents getting a divorce, so it would be insensitive to say that she was whiny, but just know it's out there. Michelle had a lot going on with her parents and going from dance captain to alternate, so it makes sense as to why she was so miserable the entire way through. Literally, my only problem is that it was a lot, to the point where I was over it by the early stage of the season. The only thing I can compare this to is The Sexiest Man Alive 2024. Stay with me. For context, every year, People's Magazine comes out with the Sexiest Man Alive magazine because we are living in a utopia, of course. Every time this magazine comes out, everyone is guessing who it's going to be. Patrick Dempsey, Michael B. Jordan, John Legend, maybe John Legend, Matt Damon, Adam Levine. Anyways, you get the gist. The vast majority thought it was going to be Glenn Powell because he was shoved down our throats in 2024, remember? But instead, it was John Krasinski who played Jim in The Office. I've never watched The Office, but I know that people really like his character. Regardless, a lot of people were expecting other sexy men, I guess, and were disappointed by John being the face of The Sexiest Man Alive. And I'm pretty sure this happens every single year because you can't please everyone. My point is John Krasinski has probably never faced backlash for his looks because that would be uncalled for. But the moment he was announced for Sexiest Man Alive, it was like President Snow on that chair in Mockingjay Part 2. Everyone has now something to say about John Krasinski's looks because he was put in such a specific and insatiable category, and his photo shoot didn't do him any favors. This ties back to Michelle because I feel bad for what she went through. Divorce, bad. But because it took up so much of this season, I eventually ended up resenting her plotline, even though I would have never said anything if it was brought up less than it was. But you're just saying that because it's Michelle. You would have never said that if it was Emily. Yeah, you're right. Besides my least favorite characters doing Emily dirty, sometimes I take it upon myself to look at their character outside of the things that they've done. And I'm like, wow, this is actually worse than I thought. I end up liking Michelle by the later seasons, but that's only by association because she's literally always with Emily. But I digress. I was very conflicted about James this season because on one hand, I agreed with him, but thought he went about it the wrong way. Here's my press statement. It seems like James became more tender-hearted towards Riley this season, and that is linked to his major slip-up last season. For example, in the beginning of the season, James gave up his spot on the team for Riley. This was a selfless thing to do for her because he put Riley's feelings before his own. You could look at this and be like, wow, boyfriend of the year. But all of season 3, James was heavily occupied with his band, which I love, so I was not upset about this. James, from an outside perspective, looks like this giving partner who has his girlfriend's best interest in mind, but secretly he's thinking, this works out really well for me because now I can play drums all day with my band. I mean, even after he had won internationals with the team, he was still like, yeah, and I'm gonna go back to my band now. So regardless, I think that James grew as a character this season. Although he was a tad too dramatic at times, it was nice to see him finally take some sort of initiative when fighting for his relationship. Like with Riley and Ella's dynamic, it caused a divide in James and Riley's relationship. I always thought that Riley and Ella's friendship was kind of odd and kind of suspicious. So in theory, I agreed with James that Ella was changing Riley into someone unrecognizable. But James just overreacted like there was no tomorrow. James is just further proof that the sassy man apocalypse is still well and alive. Or if anything, this proves that it has always existed. James was also the culprit responsible for the fact that Eldon felt the need to get 30 pirouettes before he dated Thalia, so that's great. He claimed that Eldon reaching 30 pirouettes would indicate his maturity of being able to work his way up to a goal if he puts his mind towards it. Which makes sense for like winning a spinning competition, but not a human girl. Also, assuming that Eldon would actually learn and grow from an insignificant challenge like this is like believing that Snow wasn't going to kill Lucy Gray if she came back to the cabin. One good thing about James this season was his band, and one bad thing about James this season was his argumentative behavior. And the poor recipient of such behavior was Riley. Riley was going through her rebellious arc this season, and it was weird, and honestly, I didn't care much for Riley's story this season. She wanted James to understand her and accept her for the person that she was becoming, but it didn't even look like she enjoyed who she was becoming. One thing about Riley is that she is unshakable when it comes to what she wants to do. Regardless of James disapproving and voicing his concern, she literally didn't care and just kept being silly with Ella, which is kind of funny. Like, God forbid a girl be silly with their silly friend. Do I believe that Riley and Ella's relationship transcends the platonic confines of a platonic relationship? Yes. Can I elaborate and explain why? No. Anyways, with that being said, one bad thing about Riley this season was Ella, and one good thing about Riley was she got her braces off. I don't know. This season brought in a new character to stir things up, and Ella was her name-o. Ella was our villain this season, portraying herself as friendly competition and a new British friend, but instead she betrayed the next step when they were at their weakest. As much as Ella has done wrong and she traumatized 10-year-old me, I honestly didn't hate her. She's kind of harmless up until the end, and she's literally responsible for the square dance. So Ella literally said that she would betray Riley, and then she betrayed Riley, so I don't know. It seems like she's just someone who stands on her word. I don't have anything bad to say except for the fact that she betrayed the next step. Ella was a pretty solid character this season. Point, British people. Oh, looky here. Amanda. This season, Amanda had a hard time integrating herself back into the next step. Gee, I wonder why. But eventually everyone kind of just accepted that Amanda is part of the team and there's nothing they can do about it. Midway through the season, they shipped Amanda off to Sweden as their studio's foreign exchange student. And that's when I looked out the window. In the clouds. Started to separate. Amanda was really not a part of the season that much and was actually demoted to the alternate position alongside Michelle. I think this was supposed to be Amanda's healing/growth era. I mean, I didn't see it, but I guess. I don't have anything of significance to say about Amanda this season, which is as good as it's gonna get from me, so moving on. Even though I've said pretty much all I've needed to say about Wes, there's still some comments that I have about this particular season. Every season, Wes is a good friend, like that's not shocking, but this season particularly, it was weird to watch him be a stepping stone for other people's relationships and plot lines. There wasn't a single episode where anyone did anything for Wes, except for Chloe. Speaking of, Wes and Chloe's friendship this season was definitely my favorite part of the season. They helped each other in a way that didn't feel transactional or fake. Honestly, regardless of how unrealistic, I would have loved to see him get chosen for the Nutcracker with Chloe so that he could have prospered off screen instead of, I'm sorry, I'm bringing it up again, doing an interpretive dance for Eldon and Thalia. He was still enjoyable to watch this season. One good thing about Wes is his sincerity, and one bad thing about Wes is that he did an interpretive dance for Eldon's bitch ass. Chloe was not present this season because she accepted a position on the Nutcracker tour. Chloe has never been a character I particularly care about, not in a bad way, just in a she's not my favorite character kind of way. But when she left, I was not ready. Obviously, when you go to the next step, or any dance studio for that fact, it serves as a stepping stone in your career so that you can quite literally take the next step. So funny. So after a couple episodes of debate and back and forth with Wes, she decides to accept the offer and embark on her Nutcracker journey. Because Chloe was a major part of my favorite episode this season, she was one of my favorite characters in season 3. My only reservation about Chloe's arc is that Margie was a little girl that Chloe taught at baby ballet. Margie was wise beyond her years, and there's like 4 of them, so take that with a grain of salt. Margie is always there to help Chloe when she's going through something, and that whole dynamic has always been super cute, super wholesome. So tell me why in episode 12 this happens.
Margie waves at me. And then she disappears, and it makes me wonder if she was ever really there.
Yeah, it makes me wonder too, since she just fucking disappeared in front of our very eyes. Margie obviously is supposed to be a guardian angel to Chloe and proof that the good conscience was in her all along. And once the lesson is learned, the lesson will stop appearing and all that. But Margie was the reason why the $5 bill mystery got solved last season. She also did baby ballet with Wes in the first season, so was that not real, or... Okay, I'm overthinking this. Anyways, Chloe is so gracious. How could you not like her, you know? Noah this season was good. He's a good dancer, a good friend, and an unproblematic character overall. Noah's like Wes, where there's practically nothing bad to say about him. Well, except for maybe his relationship with a certain someone next season, but that's neither here and especially nor there. Noah and Rochelle, which is another character that becomes very important in the later seasons, kind of had a brooding romance, but it was weirdly unrequited. Rochelle was the one who liked Noah, and Noah liked Abby. I was baffled at this plotline because I do not remember this happening at all. Anyways, Noah ends up giving Rochelle the ick or something, and that whole thing falls through. So, whatever. Moving on to the elite dancers, and I mean that as her studio name, not in a descriptive way. Oh lord, Chantal was a blip in this season. She made it on the team in the first audition, but managed to be so annoying that she left after like 3 episodes. I don't know what's going on with her, but I'm sensing a pattern here. It seems like all the worst characters always come from elite. There's gotta be some type of connection between Eldon and elite. Eldon, elite, Eldon, elite, elite. Max was like this the entire season. I guess he was trying to come off as mysterious, but I couldn't care less for it. Amongst most of the characters this season, Sierra just kind of faded into the background. She wasn't that important, and she was with her sister all the time, and there can only be one iconic sister duo. We all know that. I don't have anything bad to say about Sierra, but I also don't have anything good to say about her. But all that changes next season when she did her mightiest one, but that's a story for another day. Right? With all the complaining that I did in this video, it's only fair of me to talk about my highlights of the season. My highlights of the season was that episode of Chloe and Wes learning ballet together, James and Riley's duet, and the square dance, of course. Oof, with all that praising I just did, it's only fair of me to complain a little more. So here are my qualms with this season. For one, it was a lot to lose Emily this season, her being my favorite character, but it was another thing to have Hunter also leave the season. I knew it was over for me when Hunter left the season, and then the James and the Chloe of it all. I just couldn't believe the amount of characters they got rid of this season and how they all managed to be the characters that I care the most about, leaving us so little to work with, but also not even giving them a proper goodbye. I also did not appreciate Ella's song. I thought that was not good, but hey, what's a good season without some form of bad singing, am I right?
Hey, with you each and every day. We know that we'll be right here to stay.
I had no idea that Ella could sing like that. She's actually so incredibly talented.
That marks the end of season 3 of The Next Step and the end of this video. Season 3 was like that one sound effect of a cartoon character bouncing off the walls. Yeah, that. But I've realized every time I rewatch a season of this show, I miss my childhood innocence. I used to like is a strong word, tolerate most of these characters like Thalia and Eldon. Never Amanda though. I've always hated her. Now that I watch this show, I see it for what it truly is. A hot steaming pile of garbage, but I say that with so much love. I don't think there's any show I could ramble on about like this. Like, this show truly altered my brain chemistry forever. I wanted to be like Emily when I grew up and dance like Riley. Everything turned out quite alright. Right? Feel free to tell your thoughts about this season because I was not amused. In fact, I'm warming up some green tea right now because this whole thing just fucked my feng shui right up. Anyways, thank you again for all the support. If I could tip my hat and give a bow, I would, but you know, arthritis. I'll see you in my next video, and goodbye now.